Well, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to today's webinar. My name's Brian Trombley. I'm National Sales Director at Data Conversion Laboratory. Before we get started, I just wanted to let you know that we'll allow time at the end of the session for questions and answers. We should have ample time. I think we'll get through the bulk of the presentation in about 40 minutes or less. But we can stay on as long as folks have questions. We'll stay on and answer your questions. In the lower right-hand corner of your screen, I believe you'll see a little chat box. You can type your questions there, and then we'll address those. The appropriate folks will address those as appropriate. So a little bit about Data Conversion Laboratory. For those of you who aren't familiar, we convert and organize content to create electronic documents, populate databases, publish on the web, and basically get information ready for tomorrow's delivery channels. Okay. DCL's services help you refine your document conversion strategy, identify document redundancy, extract metadata, and transform legacy and future documents for real needs today and in the future. DCL serves a very broad client base, as you can see from some of these logos here, and we cover quite a few different industries in all areas of publishing, whether it's traditional publishing for profit or what I like to call accidental publishers, which need to publish information as part of their product offerings. So today we're really pleased to have two highly respected individuals from SAE as presenters. Becky Fadek, who's held staff positions at SAE International in several key business units, including membership, exhibits, meetings, section relations, and technical standards. During her career, Becky has worked extensively with SAE's staff and volunteer groups. From 2000 to 2009, Becky served in a key role as SAE's senior organizational development consultant. And as an internal consultant, she was responsible for improving SAE's overall organization effectiveness with both member and staff groups. Becky's been and continues to be involved with SAE's quality journey. She has served on several quality implementation teams and in the mid-90s managed SAE's quality program. She also, with several colleagues, established SAE's Process Resource Center, a unique resource for an association. The purpose of the center is to improve the organizational effectiveness by providing process leadership and training. In 1999, Becky was instrumental in introducing Kaizen to SAE and served on the Kaizen implementation team. Since the adoption of Kaizen as a continuous process improvement philosophy in 2000, the center conducted over 200 Kaizen workshops, positively impacting cost reduction and productivity and quality. Becky currently serves as the Manager of Content Management. This group, established in January 2010, supports one of SAE's key strategic initiatives for sustainability and growth. The unit serves as a hub between the product and support functions required to acquire, publish, and maintain content by providing technical editing, content classification, content publishing, information management, and content archival for existing and new content. Becky's colleague Mandy May's experience at SAE is broad as well, providing her with knowledge to be a founding associate of the Content Management Business Unit, again established in January of 2010. Mandy experienced the growth pains associated with a startup business implementing a digital publishing and delivery system to serve all of SAE's product lines, evolving it from a basic framework to a high-functioning system. Mandy introduced many new components to the SAE digital publishing and delivery function, including standardized operating procedures, value-added components to content, particularly with SAE's ebooks, and experimentation with EPUB production for technical papers. Most importantly, Mandy was instrumental in the transition from Antenna House to InDesign as the SAE publishing tool, and that's the corpus of what we'll be speaking on today. Mandy serves as the team lead responsible for ensuring successful execution of all editorial and conversion processes in the digital publishing workflow, making adjustments and improvements to workflow process to gain efficiencies and continually improve output quality. So without further ado, Becky, Mandy, welcome, and I'll hand it off to you.
Thank you, Brian. Mandy and I are really thrilled to be here to share our journey from moving from a manual pass-through operation to an automated publishing system. A little bit of background about SAE. We are a global body of scientists, engineers, and practitioners that advances self-propelled vehicle and system knowledge in a neutral form for the benefit of society. We were founded in 1905 and we have offices in the United States, England, and China. We fulfill our mission by developing and delivering knowledge solutions such as industry standards, professional development and training courses, conferences, technical books and papers, and journal articles. Our focus today is on the journey we started in 2010 to automate our publishing process. On our journey, as being a startup, we experienced many bumps along the way, many false starts, and lots of growing pains. The challenges we needed to address as a startup organization have been consistent throughout our 5 years history. Delivering relevant content in a timely manner continues to be at the top of our list. And based on budget constraints at the time we started operations, the team would remain resource neutral for at least 5 to 7 years. The look and the quality of the documents varied for several reasons. Final papers were published using the manuscript as submitted by the author. You can only imagine the different variations we had in the final product. For the first 3 years, we had no documented standard operating procedures. Procedures and processes existed, but they were in multiple places and, again, not documented. During our 4th year, dual publishing systems with multiple style sheets were in play, causing inconsistency in quality. And then, to meet the expectations of our internal customers, service level agreements were established within the first year of operations. The SLAs clearly outlined responsibilities, deliverables, and publishing deadlines. Adhering to the SLAs is a top priority for the content management team. For the first few years, our success was incremental. However, in 2012, a dramatic shift in our thinking occurred. Mandy will share the progress we have made in the 5 years to address these challenges.
Thank you very much, Becky. And it is exciting to talk about the tools that we'll be discussing today. And they're tools that I was just using just a few hours ago. Let me begin by saying the SAE International technical paper production process has had many significant changes over these past 4 years. Previous to 2010, all papers were received by the authors as a PDF in which they formatted their papers using a template that was provided by our staff. The PDFs were published just as they were received, and as Becky mentioned, there were many variations. We supplied those papers to our customers as a downloadable PDF or a hard copy print. In 2010, a major effort began to not only engage an XML-focused publishing system, but to convert all of our legacy technical paper content, which translates to 85,400 papers, to XML. Using a vendor to convert that historical content to XML, we ran it through a QA process, we ingested it into our content management system, and we did this through a back-end workflow. And then, truly, our real work began. We were a brand new 5-person business unit at SAE led by Becky, and we focused our contemporary publishing efforts on SAE's biggest paper producing event of the year, our World Congress meeting. We coupled our chosen publishing tool, Antenna House, with several pieces that were developed in-house. This included, number 1, the actual content management system. Number 2, our XML tagging system, which is based on JATS or the NLM DTD, but it also has multiple SAE-specific enhancements. And number 3, the XSL-FO style sheet. And so we embarked on publishing 1,331 papers in a 9-week time frame with all things new, even our staff. Looking back now at some of those initial deliverables is somewhat painful for us, but we learned much during our infancy as a team about the types of improvements that we really wanted to see. That brings us to 2011. In 2011, we implemented several improvements to our publishing process with changes to the XSL-FO and also upgrades to Antenna House. Realizing that even an automated publishing process needs some operator intervention, we tackled the most glaring weaknesses first. White space was reduced significantly, and the placement of figures was dramatically improved. It was also during this time that we recognized that even though the delivery of our paper product line is mostly electronic, the appearance of the quote-unquote printed page was still important to our management and to our customers, particularly with our journal articles. And just to take a moment to clarify, as with many publishers, all SAE technical papers are considered to be selected for journal publication, but only the best of the best are chosen. Not only were we able to improve our publishing process during this time frame, but based on our first year's efforts, we could also give better direction in our style guide that we provide to the authors to further improve this new publishing workflow. 2012 was the year that we felt that based on the limitations of Antenna House combined with our chosen tagging of our XML and the continued focus of a printed page appearance, we really needed to investigate a new publishing tool. Recognizing the value of InDesign and the flexibility it would allow us to move our content, we chose a vendor to develop an XML transformation process as well as a technical paper style sheet. Looking back, the vendor was an ultimate expert in the field of InDesign use, but not necessarily skilled in style sheet development. During the first 3 quarters of 2013, we gradually introduced InDesign into our workflow with these new tools. 2 of our team members were assigned to publish the more complex technical papers using this software. Maintaining a dual system, InDesign and Antenna House, presented its own challenges. Tracking and revising multiple style sheet and XSL-FO pieces. When a change was made to one, that change had to trickle down to every single one, and each change required its own set of user acceptance testing sessions. Also, we were storing multiple final deliverable source files. Also, only technical papers could be InDesign published at this time. No style sheet had yet been developed for journal articles. And lastly, and most importantly, the outputs were different in quality. The InDesign published pieces just looked better. The last 3 months of 2013 were the most dynamic in our paper publishing history when we focused on making InDesign our exclusive publishing tool. And we engaged a new vendor to develop the necessary tools for us to make that happen. DCL was selected based on multiple factors: style sheet development experience, InDesign knowledge, and also our past experience with them. In November 2013, we, SAE and DCL, employed the Agile development process: testing, developing, testing, developing, feedback each time, and on and on and on a daily basis. And it didn't take much time for us to recognize that we were well on our way to receiving a light years ahead process from what we had been using. DCL not only provided what we originally requested, but they offered up several exclusive features that we did not even envision were impossible. Our new process allows us to, number one, batch process 30 papers at a time. Previously, it was a one paper at a time workflow. Number two, the output file is of the highest quality. This includes spacing, figure placement, all the hyperlinks are active, heading levels. There are minimal edits necessary to our initial files. Number three, each paper that we publish requires a final footer, and that has 6 variations based on the type of copyright that's placed on the paper. DCL suggested making this an automated process, and that was one of those features we thought was impossible. Number four, our technical paper format includes a notched box that contains all of our metadata pieces. This notched box is part of SAE's new brand, and it has caused some difficulty across the organization to maintain compliance. Our new process allows us to maintain this brand element perfectly. And number five, the output file automatically provides either a technical paper format or a journal article format with no manual intervention. We again engage these tools shortly before our busiest production time of the year, with a shorter time to deliver, more papers to publish than ever, and less staff. Due to DCL's new tools, we were able not only to meet our delivery date, but we did so seamlessly and with the highest quality papers to date. I'm very pleased to be able to show you a few of these examples. And you'll see as we go through how very different the technical paper and the journal paper formats are. All we do is lay that content in once, and whatever file we're supposed to receive happens automatically. And you'll see as I scroll through here, the spacing is perfect. Having a little problem getting through here. You can see how complicated the papers are because they're having a hard time even loading. But the papers are full of equations, images, tables, and you'll see the header that right here at the top of the page. That's also another automated process that happens. That includes the author's name, what journal it's appearing in, what volume and issue, and the publication date. If I could go to the end of the paper here, we could show you an example of one of our footers. This is the footer that we were discussing earlier, and based on the copyright, the content that's within that footer can have 6 different variations. It's yet again something else that we don't have to think about as production specialists. The right text appears every time. Close out of that one. And we'll bring up the technical paper format, and you'll see this is the notched box that I was discussing earlier. As you know, the number of authors, the length of the title, the citation, all of that information can vary, and that expands this notched box. It was important to SAE's brand that we maintain the angle of that notch each time, and the tools that we receive from DCL, it happens perfectly each and every time. And I would take time to scroll through, but you would see that the white space is all but eliminated. And as I said, there is very few edits that we have to make manually. So why the change? Many factors led us to make this change. Number one, we want to continually improve the look and feel of our paper product line. InDesign allows us to do this as well as keep our eye on the future. perhaps even providing our customers with EPUB packages exported from these same InDesign files. Number 2, we needed to automate as much as possible. Antenna House did not allow us to do this, and our previous InDesign tools didn't either. Our previous process was so complex and convoluted that our pre-pub check, it was just a laundry list of tweaks and adjustments. In short, it was just not working. Number 3, to encourage authors to publish with SAE, we strive to offer a longer time for final manuscript submissions. This, in turn, provides us with a shorter time to publish more and more papers. And number 4, with one input and 2 very different potential outputs, as we've shown, technical paper or journal article, we needed this to be automated, eliminating an entire level of content tracking.
So we can initially claim success. Our initiative at the end of 2013 to significantly improve production efficiency and quality of SAE technical papers and journal articles proved to be highly successful. As Mandy mentioned, the SAE World Congress is our largest conference of the year. And this is when we introduce the new tool. And this analysis really shows the number of weeks required each year to publish papers. Prior to 2014, our publishing cycle was about 8 weeks, with the exception of 2011, where it took 9 weeks. Introducing our new tool in 2014, we published 1,477 papers in just 7 weeks. We are experiencing somewhat steady growth in the volume of the papers for this particular conference, while the publishing time frame is shrinking, as Mandy said, not by our choice. When we implemented the tool earlier this year, we were, 1, entering the busiest production season of our year. The team was down 1 position. My team had no actual production experience with the tool and was learning it in real time, and the tool had never been tested in full production. But as you can see, we were starting to close the gap. Considering all of this, we significantly decreased the time required to complete the publishing cycle. Average production time dropped from an all-time high of 3 hours per paper in 2012 to 2.8 hours in 2014. The style sheet was integrated into our publishing process in February of this year. My team is very comfortable with the tool and has had some additional InDesign training. I'm certain we will continue to improve our efficiency as we become more and more proficient with the tool. So to summarize, we were able to improve quality, increase throughput, while decreasing production time with 1 less resource. With respect to quality, we look at a variety of errors that occur during the publishing process. Here are just 2 examples. The first issue deals with an author's request to make a correction to the paper. There were only 22 occurrences of this, all of which were declined, as they did not impact the technical accuracy of the paper. As you can see, that was about 1% of our papers. Another common issue is the format or layout of the paper. All of our papers go through a rigorous review before being published to ensure compliance with all product specifications and our publishing standards. Requests to format, at least for 2014, were all denied, but in essence they are all typically denied.
And so what have been the benefits? We've mentioned some already. I'd like to just recite a few more. The spacing has been improved everywhere, between heading levels and preceding content, between figures and captions, tables and captions, between list items, and so on and so on. With our previous process using Antenna House, any large image had to be floated to the top of the very next page. With our new tools, large graphics can appear at the top and middle or the bottom of the page. White space has all been eliminated. It's non-existent. One thing that is very important that we haven't mentioned yet is that the Antenna House process forced us to edit our XML file to accommodate publishing. Our XML file now remains in its preferred, unedited, pristine condition. We publish content once in the right format, either a technical paper or a journal article. Flexibility with layout belongs to the specialist now, and we are no longer bound by the limitations of a tool. Production volume is increased, production time is decreased, and there are less resources required.
Based on our recent success, we're moving in the same direction with another product line, and we'll apply many of the lessons we learned from this experience. Some of these I'd like to share with you. The most important aspect is to fully understand the scope of the project. I, unfortunately, underestimated the amount of work required to complete the project, putting DCL under some very aggressive design and development deadlines. However, the agile development process employed by DCL was instrumental in completing the project in about a 2-month time period. Vendor selection is another key to success. Our first initiative to use InDesign was somewhat successful, but not to the degree we needed. We based vendor selection, as Mandy said, on InDesign experience and not style sheet development. Once we realized the benefits to be gained from using InDesign, our vendor search focused on a vendor that had extensive style sheet development capability coupled with strong InDesign experience. DCL, our selected vendor, provided the expertise and guidance we needed for this project to be successful. It's also important to start with a clean slate. We attempted to build off of our first style sheet, and although it was good having some of the basics defined, it may have delayed progress a bit. We relied heavily on the recommendations from the developer and gained more than we thought possible, some of which Mandy has shared with you. Involve your team of experts in various roles to facilitate the work. Mandy served as the project manager. All team members participated in user acceptance testing at various stages. Several of our team members provided additional InDesign training as we launched the tool. And then after launch, the team continually looked for ways to improve the tool, and we are soon to start on version 2. Involving each member of the team was extremely beneficial, as each person brought a different skill level to the table as well as experience. The combined knowledge of the team, SAE and DCL, helped produce a high-quality, efficient tool. Success was achieved through a partnership between SAE and DCL. Questions? Brian, any comments? Andrew, do we have any questions?
Just want to, yeah, sorry, I was on mute. Can you hear me, Becky?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, great. So any questions, please type those in the little chat box in the lower right-hand corner. Just one comment I want to make. You know, we talked about the move from Antenna House to InDesign, and you know, this set of content is the quality of the layout, the need to finesse the content was critical, and that's, you know, one thing that InDesign gave you that was more difficult with the Antenna House process, where you'd have to go in and you know, possibly change the XML to try and achieve some of the positioning and spacing, and you know, as both Becky and Mandy said, you want to keep that XML as pristine as possible. But that doesn't mean that, you know, for these types of papers or articles that you can achieve, you know, some good batch output, you know, without using something like we did with InDesign. We have a project that will be starting soon where a different set of content with different challenges, or some of the same challenges but more of them, has us looking at a hybrid approach where some of the content will go through a more refined FO process using Antenna House, and some of the content will flow into an InDesign-based workflow where we can batch and auto-compose most of that, and then give the staff at SAE the ability to go in and then manually finesse what they need to really make the content look good. So, it's not an all or nothing with InDesign. There will be, I think, multiple paths in the future, and that's probably the way it should be. Okay. Question coming in. What's the CMS like? So Becky, maybe you can tell a little bit about the CMS that your team pulled together to manage this process.
Our content management system is basically a home-built system. It's not a package, but our repository is MarkLogic. I'll let Mandy talk a little bit more about the actual system.
What actually happens is we have a staging area where we drop our papers into that staging area, and from the way the system is built, the system picks up our content, runs it through the process, picks up the other pieces of data that it needs. Once we publish, then the data is stored in MarkLogic, but it is a home-built system based on our product lines and our needs.
Yep. Okay. Here's another question, and Mandy, this probably is best answered by you. How are you pouring the XML into InDesign? Maybe you can explain a little bit about the scripts and various processes that Ed put in place for you.
It all begins with a transformation process that the XML goes through to create a result XML file. We then have a batch processing script, which was part of the tools that were provided by DCL, where we run that batch and it automatically creates those InDesign files, either journal article or technical paper, creating the correct file each time. So it goes through the transformation, then it goes through a batch processing script.
Great. Another question, in what format do the authors submit the math?
We're in a variety of sources there right now. Most of the equations that we receive are captured as images. The authors provide to us a Word file as well as a PDF. When we send the files out for conversion, the PDF is used. If the equations are complicated, they're captured as an image, and that's all part of the XML and then the transformation and batch processing.
But I will say the second project that we're beginning to work on, we will be capturing the math as text, so we're asking the math to be submitted as math ML. The reason why we prefer the images with the technical papers is because the volume that we produce, having to prove, we could have a paper with 100 equations in it, and I mean complex equations. So the ability to be able to proof those is very limited in the time we have. However, with this other product line, we have more flexibility in our proofing time.
Right.
And I just wanted to go back to something that you said earlier, Brian, about using Antenna House. I think we'll be at an advantage there for this new product line because DCL is also helping us to convert the content from the beginning. With this technical paper product line, we had to use what XML and what tagging we had in place. But starting from scratch, starting fresh with new XML tagging, Antenna House definitely is a viable option.
Right. And so just building on that, the next question is how are math equations handled in InDesign? And I think, going forward with the conversion work, the pre-conversion work that DCL is doing, that will all be in math ML. The Antenna House XSL-FO process handles the math ML, perfectly, and we have the abilities with plugins to InDesign to handle math ML. So, that will be the way forward. Correct, Becky and Mandy?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
correct.
Right. Okay. Next question. We've got a lot of questions here. This is good. How do you handle text edits changes once the paper has been produced in InDesign? Specifically, how are text changes made in the XML?
Well, if we find, let's say we find a conversion error, something that we change in the InDesign file, we would go back into our XML file. We run that through our content management system one more time, and then we replace the pieces that are missing. So that part is still a little bit tricky, but it's definitely doable. We change it in the XML for permanent housing and MarkLogic,
Right.
and then we change it, of course, in the InDesign file that's being used to produce the PDF as a published paper.
Right.
And typically, if an author wants to make a change, once the final manuscript has been submitted, we basically don't give them the ability to do that. They can either pull their manuscript and publish it later, or accept the manuscript as it was submitted.
Right. So in essence, there's no real round tripping of XML in and out of InDesign with final copy edits made in InDesign. It really is, in this case, the paper's been pretty much locked down. It's flowed, it's converted, it's flowed into InDesign. And as Becky and Mandy say, if there needs to be some change, it's made back to the XML and then pushed back into the process all over again.
But I might mention, Brian, that that's something that we did discuss with the developer when we were going through the initial tool development. Yep. So we didn't lose that thought.
Yep. Yep. It always has posed certain challenges, and wanting to keep your XML pristine and structured in the same way, as it went in, you just have to tread lightly there still after all these years. So another question, we've got quite a few here. Are you maintaining the XML tags in InDesign, or are you converting them to InDesign tags?
They're being mapped, and that's what the transformation process does. It takes the XML tags and maps them to the correct InDesign style tags. Right. And that's a tool that was developed by DCL.
Okay. Are you using a math plugin for InDesign to get your equation output? If so, which one? And as Becky said, currently in this particular project, it is image-based math, but going forward, it will be focused on MathML. And what is the? It's the Design Science plugin. Is that what is going to be used, Becky?
Yes.
Math. What is it? Math type, I believe.
Math type. Yeah, math.
Right. Right. Okay. Great. Another question from the long list. Is the tool you used available out of the box, or is this a custom proprietary tool that DCL developed for SAE? And we call it a tool, but really it was a combination of using standard scripting capabilities and standard style sheet capabilities within InDesign, but setting them up, creating transforms that that pre-process the content, creating scripts that automate the building of a number of documents at the same time in a batch process, and then of course all the mapping tools that, or the mapping capabilities that exist within InDesign to map XML tag sets to the InDesign styles. So it's definitely not out of the box. And it's not a product. It really is a combination of services and really sitting down and on a customer by customer basis, looking at their content and saying, okay, this is how we'd approach it for you based on what we see in your content versus how we approach it for SAE based on what we see in their content. And quite frankly, with the upcoming project for the standards documents, we challenged Becky and her team on the notion that we should just do the same thing with these documents as we did with the technical papers and journal articles. And we said, no, let's look at getting as much automation as possible and seeing if we can improve the antenna house process you had in place before to make it more robust, more infallible. And part of that is based on having the right XML up front to go through the process, but also recognizing that not everything's going to go through that automated process, that there will be a portion of the content set that needs to go through the InDesign process. So, you know, I think it's a combination of you know, experience, standard tools, and really working together as a team to get it done right.
You're right, Brian. We use the word tool loosely. It was a package of transformation, scripts, style sheets, all of those things. So, yes.
Yep. Another question, where does InDesign fail to deliver in terms of XML import and formatting? And I think, and I'll just talk a little bit because, and I wish I had Ed on the line, but you know, we can address some of these things offline. You know, one of the things that is causing us to think about this hybrid approach for the next project is because of, and Becky, correct me if I'm wrong, heavy amount of tabular content that is better handled in the FO process than in the InDesign process. That's
correct. That's correct.
And I think there's a number of other things, but the table handling is one. I think we got, you know, I mean, we could map anything to anything, so, you know, the formatting limitations, I think, are really around the table handling, at least for the type of content SAE has. Becky or Mandy, is there anything else that you saw as limitations while you were working through this with Ed?
No, but in the beginning, when we instituted the new tool, it was right before our biggest event of the year, about 1,500 pages, and we knew that we had not seen every instance of every element that we might have during that time. Out of those 1,500 papers, there might have been 5 that had to go offline for things that just were totally out of the norm. But 5 out of 1,500, that's a pretty good ratio.
Yeah. Becky, I'm sorry, Mandy, just to clarify, you first said 1,500 pages, then you corrected yourself, 1,500 papers. What was the average page count per paper? Was it like 10 or 12 pages?
They say the average paper is 9 to 12 pages long.
Okay. All right. So, you know, 15 to 18,000 pages, you know, with a small staff, in a, what did we get through, 7 weeks this year was the
7 weeks.
7.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
7 weeks.
With a new set of tools, you know, and so that was pretty good. What requirements do you give the authors when they submit papers? What condition are the papers in when you get them?
We receive them in a variety of different formats. We do give our authors a template and a style guide to help them work through formatting decisions. But we see papers in every single format possible.
Next question, how do you get the clean XML from InDesign? Do you use InDesign inbuilt features or have some scripts, or do you have some scripts to do this? I think we touched on this earlier because we're not really doing that round tripping thing. Really, InDesign is part of a delivery channel. It's publishing it out. The XML is coming in. Presumably the XML, the source XML that went in is not being changed, and if it does, as Mandy said earlier, you know, go back and make the change to the XML and run it through the process again. But you know, there are good ways, built-in ways to get XML out of InDesign. Again, you know, just like you have to map the tag sets to the styles going in, there is a similar process coming out, and it really is only as good as your experience and ability to do that sort of thing. And you might have to do some post-processing as well, depending on what you're hoping to get out in terms of XML structure. Mandy, any further comment on that?
No. If we had the InDesign to XML output scenario available to us, I don't think that many of us would be using it at this time just because it wouldn't fit our purposes, but right. In the future, definitely.
Yep. Okay. Another question, is this system on the cloud?
No.
No. But I know Mandy was on cloud 9 when she was using it.
True.
Absolutely. We are thankful for it each and every day, believe me.
Great. Another question, we've got quite a few more still. Are you editing and proofing at XML stage prior to InDesign?
No, what we do is we run the transformation, we create our InDesign files, and then once we have the paper formatted the way we believe it to be published, we will take our InDesign file that we're getting ready to create the new PDF, and we will compare it to what the author originally submitted, making sure that each paragraph is there, special symbols are accurate, all the images are there, all the tables are there. So that's when we do a QA on it. Yep. Prior to that, we do some reformatting of all of the SAE references, but the QA typically happens at the end of the process.
Right. Becky, how does that differ from the process you're looking forward to putting in place for the actual standards documents? Because that you're going to an XML upfront approach too, but are you going to be doing some proofing and maybe final editing in XML, or will all that editing be done in the Word template before it goes to XML?
It will. All the editing will be completed before it goes for conversion.
Okay. Next question. What positions do you add to your staff to support publishing your content using an XML workflow?
Well, that's a very good question. When we started our organization, it'll be 5 years in January, we looked at our current production staff that we had, and we were looking not to hire outside, but to hire within with individuals. We had the technical capability to learn new skills. So we were looking for people that had some layout design experience. Several of the folks had worked with the technical papers prior to our move to XML. We had done some testing with people throughout the building, proofing documents to see how well they could do in 2009. And then it was basically just a selection process based on where we thought we had the most to gain with the individual. Now, what we have done since then is we have done training on XML tagging. We have done training on Antenna House, InDesign, our systems training. We were a homegrown group that literally just decided we could do it. Mandy and I had many hours when we first started. She was brand new to all of this, and it was a new startup for me, and we said, just stay with us for a little while, we'll get it. And we did. So, I mean, it's basically people that are skilled at layout and have some XML experience. That will get you what you need.
Yep. Great. Another question here. Have you found any applications for this tool for your online publications, or is this solely for paper-based publications?
When they talk about online products, can you clarify that? The tools that we've discussed today are used to publish our technical papers and our journal articles. And those papers are available individually. They're available on the digital library. They're available in compilations and subscriptions. So this tool creates the products that feeds multiple other products.
And we have experimented with creating an EPUB from the InDesign file. So we've not had a great demand for that. In fact, we've had none. But we wanted to be a little bit ahead of the curve, so we have done some experimentation that we could actually use this file for multiple purposes.
Great. Here's a question. Is there any option to compile issues? So I'm assuming they mean compiling a number of articles into an issue, but that's really not what this project was focused on. It was individual technical and papers and journal articles for your World Congress. there's nothing built into what we put together to take multiple separate journal articles or papers and build a book out of them.
Actually, yes, we have, Brian. And
I'm sorry.
They're experimenting with that right now.
Okay.
Actually taking those journal articles and creating a book InDesign file to publish the actual journal. So, yeah. Okay,
great. Yeah, DCL is part of its regular production control system workflow for work we do in-house on behalf of our clients. Does have the ability to build books. We do quite a bit of composition work for a number of journal publishers where we give them an interface to go in then and select which articles are going to be built into a particular issue. All of the composition work and the work we've done to help SAE is really to put the power in their hands and really put them in the driver's seat. So, you know, our relationship in this case has been purely consulting services to get them up and running and successful. Here's a long question. I've got to scroll as I do it. Do you have any requirements within the documents that are dependent on a condition during processing, such as left page, right page, page position, post-processing, odd even pages, etc.? Does InDesign handle conditions during the processing, or is it done in the transformation?
Well, you saw from the examples that we had that we do have a first page. We don't have left and right facing pages for a purpose, but when our InDesign file is created, that first page is a right facing and so on. I'm not sure we are understanding the question.
Yeah, well, I think they're talking about, you know, automated, you know, condition-based processing. So, for instance, your, you know, the headers, that's automated based on information in the file itself, and the last page, what was that? The copyright.
That's the footer, yeah.
The footer, that information is different depending on, I think you said you had half a dozen possible types of footer.
Yes, depending upon the copyright that's placed on the paper, the text of that footer is going to change. Yep. And we actually have a footnote script that we run when the file is almost completely done. We click on that footnote script and it places the correct wording, which is part of the XML file, but the DCL tool made that happen as an automatic process.
Great. Next question. How do you manage the references and citations? If there are any renumbering, is there any renumbering required on these papers? How is that managed?
No, there's no renumbering required. As we receive the file from the author, they're numbered appropriately. We do some reformatting of the actual citations, but our process allows us to create papers and journal articles where you can actually click on the indicator, the number indicator within the paper, and it'll take you to that reference in the back of the paper. And oftentimes there is an outside URL that's also hyperlinked. So, but no, there's no renumbering required.
Great. Thanks, Mandy. Next question. When you say you are not on the cloud, does that mean the software is on the cloud, but the file storage is on an SAE server?
The file storage is on a server, and that's where all of our content is. But the InDesign tool, the transformation process, those are all files and tools that we have on our hard drives.
Right. So those are locally installed applications, InDesign, you know, aspects of Creative Suite, but not the Creative Cloud.
No, it's CS6.
Yep. Okay. How is content being moved from author submissions into XML?
We use a conversion vendor, and I think we talked about it earlier. We require a Word document and a PDF from our authors. We send that PDF out to a conversion vendor to be converted to XML, and those are the files that we use to begin the process.
Mm-hmm. Is there any option to move online files to Add-upon, ScholarOne, etc.?
I know that's being investigated by our publications area, but that would be more of a product decision rather than a production decision.
Yeah. I mean, just as, you know, to address that, you know, DCL, a lot of conversion work we do in the STM space, we are delivering to multiple platforms and have, you know, processes and channels for our clients to submit and get content through. So, you know, SAE could do that through DCL. They could do it themselves. You know, typical ones, you know, Add-upon, ScholarOne, Highwire, Silverchair, you know, and PubMed Central, any number of them. It really is, you know, is your XML in the format that that platform wants to receive it. And all of these platforms are pretty much focused on NLM or JATS as it is now, or some you know, minor modification of a JATS, or in the case of books, a BITS format.
Our journal articles are going to Highwire, and our references, I know, are going to several third-party sources.
Sure. Yep. Next question. So did I understand that the authors are using a Word XML file that you are ingesting in InDesign using the matching XML tags and mapping to styles? And I think the answer is no. You know, for these papers, Becky, I believe, and Mandy, I believe you said you're getting them in a variety of formats. They're pre-converted to XML by your conversion vendor, and that XML is what's going in.
Yes.
Correct.
Right. Okay. And going forward with the standards documents, which have the longer content development cycle, you provide the standards teams with a Word template, but it is Word. It's not Word with an XML plugin. So at the end of that process, there still will be a Word to XML conversion before whatever print production path the content takes.
Yes.
It's typically a Word to PDF to XML conversion.
Right.
That's what it is for papers.
Okay. Next question, are you still using Antenna House today for your paper-based publications, or strictly the tool in InDesign? And I think, you know, we've talked about that in the future of Antenna House there. It's clearly going to be part of a hybrid process for the standards documents, which are similar but different than the technical papers and the journal articles. I mean, they really are the authoritative definition of you know, a particular situation and instance that industry needs to follow. I think one more question, and this is a question from me, Becky, and maybe both of you can answer it, maybe you'll answer it the same or differently. So if you had to do this all over again today with all the knowledge that you've gained through going through this process, going, you know, way back to, you know, doing it with Antenna House and thinking about a better way, you know, what are the 2 or 3 most important things you would bring into this project that might be helpful for others thinking about doing something like this? Becky?
Well, I can do it from, you know, my pitfalls that I ran into, and I think I share this with the lessons learned. It's make sure you understand the scope of the project, because if you don't, you're going to put your vendor in a very uncomfortable position. So that's like my number one. The second one is employ a vendor that can do what you need to get done. You know, you sometimes get what you pay for. So you really need to think through what you need and the impact of having a tool that may not live up to what you think it can. When you recognize the fact that there are experts out there, you need to get with the experts. You need to allow them to be your guide. rely on their recommendations. That's what made us so successful this second time, the second pass, was having the right vendor working with us who truly was a partner with us, did challenge us, did stretch us a little bit. So those probably are my two key things. Andy?
I would say identifying the breadth and the depth of the different elements that you might encounter. We really enjoy running papers through the batch process and watching every element work. We took a lot of time to provide examples to DCL of all the different types of content that we see each day, and it all works. And so I would just say knowing the breadth and the depth of the project.
Right. Great. Well, Becky and Mandy, thank you so much for your time today. I know we got a lot of questions there. That was great. We got through the slide deck in half an hour, and we spent half an hour with question and answer, and that's really great. This is going to conclude today's broadcast. The recorded version of the webinar will be available on our website either later today or tomorrow morning. That's www.dclab.com. There's an area for the DCL Learning Series where we have all the webinars recordings from the past. You'll be able to view it there or to download it, take it offline. Also, I just want to mention our next webinar will be tomorrow, Wednesday, the 24th at 1 o'clock, titled Words Matter, How Your Language Affects Your Business, and that's presented by P.G. Bartlett, who's the Senior Vice President of Product Marketing at Aqualinks. So, again, thank everyone for attending. Becky, Mandy, thank you so much, and we'll see you all soon. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.